Hello, everyone. How's everybody today? This is how we talk to people in Jamaica, so I just thought fantastic panel and we have here. I came today wondering if I was a little bit misplaced when I had on my jeans, and then I saw David and I got depressed, and then I saw Lee and I thought, I'm good. I'm great. So it's a really fantastic time to be talking about overtourism, in particular for Jamaica, because it is our feeling that in Jamaica we're not there yet in terms of some of the classical definitions of overtourism. We're, however, at a very critical decision point. And I'll tell you why. Just recently, for the first time in Jamaica's recent history, tourism became the #1 foreign exchange earner. Can anybody guess what it was before? You'd think music, right? Somebody says rum. Oh, wow. One more try? It's not pot, I promise you. Interestingly, it was remittances. Huh. And so, about a year now, tourism has taken over as our major foreign exchange earner. That's a very important point to raise. The other thing that I wanted to put in context is that we are now on a path, and this is why I'm saying we're at a decision point, where the government has an imperative. It's a 5x5x5 policy initiative, which says that we want 5 million tourists, in 5 years while earning $5 billion US. So that's the 5x5x5. Here's where we are in that plan. So 5 years should take us to 2021. We are now at 4.3 million for last year. So we're ahead of that target. And I'll show you in a little while what the numbers are for this point in the year. So we're talking a numbers game, and once you're getting into the numbers game, you're always at a point of risk when it comes to overtourism. The other thing I wanted to put out there is that Jamaica's model is very different from most places in the world. So when I go to Rome, I'm going to see architecture, right? Or I'm going to see some things that have a religious significance. I heard somebody speaking about the Grand Canyon earlier. When I go to Arizona, I'm going for the Grand Canyon, and then I find a bed close by, right? You see, in Jamaica, we have an accommodations-driven model. And I should point out that when I come to Washington, D.C., I didn't come for the Marriott. I came because Selene told me I had to. But very, very importantly, I come for the sights, I come for the attractions, and then I find a place to lay my head. What we have in Jamaica, which is an interesting phenomenon, where we have a lot of hotels along the coast, it's an accommodations-driven model where some attractions are chosen as a package to go with the hotels. So we're rethinking that model, and that's an important step that we have to take. So enter TPDCO. That's the Tourism Product Development Company that I represent. Interestingly, so I'm the CEO. We have the Deputy CEO, who's also here and at the back of the room, making sure I don't say anything I shouldn't. We have a very important role because we are one of only 2 companies in the Caribbean that is charged with the product responsibilities. So most other Caribbean countries have a tourism authority that handles marketing as well as product. We have separated, so we have a Jamaica Tourist Board, and then we have the TPDCO, affectionately known, Tourism Product Development Company, responsible for product diversification, enhancement, making sure that we get our people ready. So you'll see some of the things there. We train, we certify, and we also license, and we're the standard bearers. We have to license all hotels, all attractions, all tourism businesses. We stimulate, and of course, we lead. So just to share a little bit of our vision statement, and the key terms in the vision statement, somebody said earlier, this does not point. Let's see if it works for me. Yes, it does. Ah, there you go. So diverse is very important to us. The enhancement and ultimately visitor experience. We're past the stage where you just build the rooms and they'll come. For many years, we thought that was the case. We recognize now it's more about an experiential approach. And of course, this part that we've put in bold, we want to ensure that there's an improved quality of life for all Jamaicans. And I don't need to define overtourism for this group, for sure, but I just wanted to make a point that it is about acceptable levels of change in our spaces. So we have embarked on a number of initiatives that try to involve Jamaicans, involve communities. And we believe firmly, and that's why I quite like the point that Lee ended on, is that we have to develop a place that people are proud to live. And your residents must feel that you're developing the space so that they can have a better quality of life, that it's not just for the tourists. That's something that we're working hard to bridge. So this is a challenge that we face, as do most developing countries. You tell yourself you need to develop, right? So a part of that development thrust is that you engage in thoughts about growth. And as you think about growth, the question you have to ask is, how do you strike that delicate balance between achieving this growth while protecting socially and ecologically your space? So that's the big tension between anthropocentrism and ecocentrism. We see it all the time in Jamaica, where there are many investors who want to invest. We want to facilitate development because we are that kind of country, and we recognize that we need some kinds of development. But then there's also the pull at the other extreme, or environmental groups, and in particular Jamaica Environmental Trust. There's that tension that's constantly having to be managed from a government perspective. So a little bit about this year. Mentioned to you that we have a target of 5 million. So for this year, just January to August, we're already at 2.95, 3 million roughly. And if you look at similar period, there's a slight increase there. Well, one might say it's not slight, but we've seen a 4%, almost 5% year-on-year increase. And if you look at the breakdown, cruise 1.2 million, stopover arrivals 1.7 million. Incidentally, the breakdown last year for the 4.3 million was 2.3 million cruise visitors and 2 million stopover. Told you earlier about that 5 by 5 by 5 plan, and here's where we are. As an academic, for many years, I criticized governments for speaking numbers and speaking about arrivals, and said that they never spoke enough about the earnings. I've come to realize that even when you're speaking about the earnings, that in and of itself is not enough. The fact that we want to earn $5 billion does not somehow make the fact that we want 5 million tourists okay. So there are other elements that we have to consider about what spaces we're developing, how we look at congestion in some of our areas, and how we try to disperse some of that. So I'll just take you down to our bullet points here, because this is really important. So we have what we call Spruce Up Jamaica. And spruce up just means making it nicer, huh? What we've done with the Spruce Up Jamaica program is to move it away from just tourism areas. So our main resort areas are, I'm sure you can tell me some of them. Montego Bay, there you go. Highest number of, that's where you're from? Yes. Oh, excellent. Nice to have you. So you see, I could not come and fool this crowd then that I was Usain Bolt. So Jamaica, they wouldn't, yeah, you would call me out. So there's Spruce Up Jamaica program, which is, we've designed it in such a way that it's not just in Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, Portland and St. Thomas. It's not just Negril, it's not just Kingston and the South Coast. It is that all of the constituencies for our members of parliament, all 63 of them, will get a program that is designed to make their area not only livable, but exciting. So what that does two things. One, it makes the residents of all these communities recognize value in their own space and their improved quality of life, but it also drives a process of moving from some of those heavily concentrated areas like Montego Bay, Ocho Rios, and Negril to some more areas that are actually quite developed. Diversified business plans. One of the things we do at the TPDCO is to help individuals to develop a business. So if you come to us and say, look, I want to get involved, you say that this thing is an inclusive growth agenda, get me involved. It is our job to take your idea and to help you to create a plan. What we are doing now is to ensure that what we are looking at are a number of diversified types of tourism businesses so that we don't end up with more of the same in more of the same locations. That's very important. Now, I am a little bit embarrassed because I recently discovered that Jamaica has over 100 internationally recognized attractions. Prior to coming to this job, I had not been to 10. Now, this job has forced me to see some more, but I'm still not yet at 100. So there's a lot of room to have individuals move around the country rather than be concentrated and huddled in one area. So one of the things I really wanted to point out is that we are community tourism driven, and we have an entire department at the Tourism Product Development Company just dedicated to community tourism initiatives. This is really important to us because we don't see community tourism as a type of tourism per se. It's not an end in itself. We see it as the vehicle. We see it as a conduit through which we can get many other types of tourism to happen while including the people. So there's something I really want to show you about our focus as it relates to community tourism. And then I'm just going to follow the previous presenters and say, video please.
This is the essence of Jamaica. Wow. It's a place where all things are possible. 1, 2, 3.
And just in case you thought that that was like some glitches with the embedding of the video, it wasn't. It's just that we have good DJs in Jamaica to who scratch and mix. All right, so our initiatives continue, and I'll try to sum these up really quickly. We have what we call our linkage network, which we think will be hugely beneficial because what that does is to connect everyone. It connects agriculture with tourism, it connects manufacturing, it connects a number of areas. So there are 5 key areas that we look at, and each of these networks has a chairman who drives the thrust. So there's sports and entertainment, and natural fit. There's health and wellness. We have lots of spa facilities which are also natural in there. We have the Milk River Spa, we have Bath in St. Thomas, which are both in areas that are not traditionally heavily tourism related. Gastronomy, for sure, people come for the food. Shopping is in its embryonic stage. We're trying to drive and to build that some more. And of course, knowledge. We want to be knowledge leaders. We're driving things to do with technology and big data. And so we want Jamaica to be a hub for things like that. I threw some other things in there because these are things that help socially. Jamaica is big on music, so we're trying to drive a program for marching bands, again, in each of the 63 constituencies right around Jamaica, because we believe that if you can give these individuals a chance to earn, which is what it becomes, cruises come in port, they need bands. Why do we need to get bands from other places? We need to have our people ready to be able to deliver this kind of service and to earn from tourism. The training and certification element is really key because we feel that we have to get our people ready for whatever this boom is going to be, and so that it does not become more exclusive, and so that it reduces the number of expatriate labor, the amount of expatriate labor we have to bring in. And so we do a lot of work as well in terms of HIV sensitization because we have to keep our people apprised. So future areas that we think we ought to be focusing on and continuing to develop are heritage assets, cultural assets, of course, flora and fauna, historical side of things. We want to, and it's interesting, last year we hosted what was called Calabash Festival. And that festival brought some of the most popular poets to our shores, and they went to a little place called Treasure Beach. And Treasure Beach is what we consider to be the model for community tourism in Jamaica. Treasure Beach is run by the people of Treasure Beach. Treasure Beach has the lowest level of crime you can think of. Treasure Beach has a nice DMO, and we're thinking that that DMO model really ought to be replicated throughout the island, where the people have full stake in it. Next steps as I wrap up. So we're now engaging in what we call a national capacity development study, because we want to understand everything we do must be data-driven. And one of the elements of this capacity study will look, for example, at the number of contract carriage operators. You call them taxis. And so we recognize that, for example, on a cruise ship day, we have a huge convergence of these individuals on our space. And the tourist feels uncomfortable when they're being bombarded. The taxi drivers become resentful when they're being rebuffed. And so we have something brewing there that we have to be mindful of. So we want to know what the right fit is in terms of the numbers. One thing that we did that demonstrated inclusiveness recently, which I thought was really phenomenal, we had some guys who were harassing people at the ports. And instead of having the police chasing them through alleys, we just called them in. At TPDCO, we trained them. We gave them what I call hygiene upgrades. We gave them dental work. We gave them medicals. We certified them. We graduated them. We gave them a T-shirt. And we gave them a badge. And we gave them a sign which says, "Ask me." And then we gave them a salary. So it means that they didn't have to be running behind people to get money. You would not believe just how successful that simple program was. 10 guys. We started with 10 guys, and now there are people who have an interest in getting involved in that process. And that happened in a town, a wonderful town we have called Falmouth. So these are some of the initiatives that we're engaging in. Of course, we need to get the metrics. I mentioned the data before. We are also hugely involved with solid waste management. So we engage the National Solid Waste Management Authority to ensure that those spaces are properly maintained. Of course, the technology is what is going to drive how we're able to do any serious mapping. And of course, everybody understands the impact of pricing. The last thing I want to leave with you, and that's going to be my very last slide, is our destination assurance pillars. At TPDCO, we call ourselves the Destination Assurance Agency. We believe that when the tourist board goes out there to sell, we must provide that stamp, that guarantee. So we are protecting the integrity of the product always. And so, incidentally, I mentioned the Deputy CEO is here. Her responsibility is solely destination assurance. And so this is intended to focus on some key things. We don't believe in the other 3 S's that we used to talk about, sun, sea, and sand anymore. Our 3 S's are safety, security, and seamlessness. And in order to achieve seamlessness, you must mitigate against overtourism. So that is a lot of what we will focus on. And you will see the list there. Ladies and gentlemen, I put it on the slide so that you can read it. I didn't give you pictures, so I will not bother to read what you can read. And this ends my presentation. I'm sure you'll have some questions. Thanks for having me.
Andrew Lee, thank you very much for your 2